Hey, hey, I want your cray-cray. Hey, hey, I want your AKA Jonescast. Hey, I want you to hear me now. Believe me later. It is Charlie, the Professor Essa, with his longtime Skinny Rich friend.
It's Mozz.
That's the guy. I love him. He is my brother from another mother. I don't get to see because he lives on the Isle of Manhattan, which is across the Hudson Ocean. We should actually meet face to face someday.
Yeah, let's grab drinks and karaoke. Are you a karaoke fan?
I love karaoke. They just don't have enough Widow Yankovic usually in their repertoire for me. But I can make do. Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. That'd be fun. That's my go-to, going to the village and doing karaoke.
That sounds like so much fun. I need to do that more. I need to leave my house, go to the city. I'm, for those who don't know, jobs have been lost, but I'm like kind of in this weird spot where a person is saying, hey, I need someone who knows HR to tell companies about HR, and I'll pay you money for that. I'm like, well, I would like to do that, but they were like, but it's only a part-time thing. Like, oh, well, that is bad, but then someone else said, hey, I need someone who likes to make films and can talk to children to make films with children during the summer. I was like, well, that's totally something I could do. I said, but it's a part-time thing. I said, well, between the two of you, maybe I can make something work. So we're going to work on that, but right now, you didn't come here to hear about my life.
Exciting as it is, because that does sound really exciting. I'm happy.
Honestly, it is very exciting. It has no insurance, but I had no insurance anyway from anyone. So it's like, yay! Capitalist society. Tonight's episode of is AKA Facetime. Season 2, Episode 6. Jessica gatecrashes an exclusive country club on the hunt for the killer, and Triss's new addiction begins to spiral out of control. Directed by Jet Wilkinson. Of course, Brian Michael Bendis gets our writing credit on this. Created by is Melissa Rosenberg. Written by is Ray L. Tucker. And IMDb has lied to us.
Uh-oh.
Because I made a note of this when I was watching earlier. There is a staff writer. There is a hardest working person in show business. Their name is... I know it's Jamie King. They're going to make it work. But yes, but it is Jamie King is our staff writer. They are credited as the staff writer. They are our hardest working person in show business. Why they're not on IMDb, I don't know. I'm sad a bit because,
either somebody at IMDb got lazy or they have a weird writer's beef or something.
I don't know. It could be anything. But, I was thinking about that as I was watching it, because it's like, we have our routine reference to our hardest working person in show business, our staff writer, and we get to it, and they haven't been on the Jessica Joneses this season. And when I saw it on there, I was like, oh, that'll be great when I see it. And then I go to it, and it's like, oh, so clearly there's a conspiracy by IMDb to hurt poor Jamie King, who has done nothing to earn their ire, I assume, or maybe they're actually a horrible person and deserve every bit of bad karma they get. I don't know. Never met them.
Maybe we can go back to previous episodes and just edit them in and add a little audio clip where they mention the name every time.
I got. You know what I got? I have to go back. I have to do the whole series of unfortunate events or 11/23/60, where you have all those lines. Say here's the conspiracy, and we were watching that recently on Hulu. The I think
11/22.
Yeah, 11/22, whatever the year is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wasn't it so good? It was so good.
I haven't watched it all yet. I'm only up to he's trying to save the guy who got hit with the hammer. So right now, I'm really excited about it. It's really good. Yes, I'm very excited. We can discuss that, and when we have time for an extra podcast. But yeah. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We'll talk about it when we do karaoke, because it is a really good series.
I loved it so much. You're making me want to go back and rewatch it now.
Yeah, well, that's a Stephen King product, I believe.
Indeed.
Indeed, yeah, and it does have that King-like brevity of dialogue with power that I love. It's funny to talk about Stephen King with brevity of dialogue because his books are so long, but really, he uses very few words and he gets across a point heavily. Good writer, Stephen King. But anyway, moving right along to this episode, of which Stephen King is not related, but still a fun, good episode. I mean, I guess it's a fun episode. We get a lot of mysteries revealed. We actually get the big mystery revealed at the very end.
Right. I think this episode was kind of a little like it didn't have like a central narrative running through it that was carrying it. It was a whole bunch of little things, but the payoff at the end was, I guess, worth a slower episode.
Yeah, well, what you can always say is life is always the little things. It's always these little things that stack up and up and up and up. You know, interesting aspect in all of this. You know, just a weird little flashback thinking about it. So, Luke Cage is a conch. Because there's the plate cells, the layered plate cells that gives him his bulletproof skin. Jessica and her mom are octopi. What other mollusks are we going to be reaching out for superpowers? It makes you think almost that, you know, Spider-Man got the short end of the stick with an arachnid. You know, just throwing that out there. But just a weird thing that I noticed that in their scientific explanations, they're going, well, you know, what if we did, you know, conch shells? And it's like, well, what if we did octopi? And it's like, okay, why not? So
it's kind of like the whole, kung fu thing where you're taking the forms and styles of different animals and turning them into martial arts forms, you know?
Yeah, I saw that episode of Manimal. It was fantastic. But, I mean, it actually is within that same idea. Well, you know, the idea within all of those things, and I think it actually ties into Spider-Man in a very interestingly direct way. You know, bears don't actually have a fighting style. Bears just fight. But there's movements of the bear that we think as humans are their fighting style.
Right. Or movements that are not natural to us, but when viewed through how the bear uses them, they provide functionality to a fighting system as well.
Which I think feeds into what we're seeing in this use of the mollusk and the octopus, which again aren't characters that you would think of, oh, I'm going to fight you snail style. No one's going to think that has a value, but obviously there are values in that mollusk that the scientists are seeing that they're extrapolating out to the human with superpowers that work through it, you know? And I think that, you know, you can trace that back, you know, when you see the idea of fighting in the style of a monkey or a bear or a praying mantis. You know, and mantis style is one of those things that is just very... It's really more the inspiration of the mantis than how the mantis works. But what I was getting back with Spider-Man is the idea that Spider-Man's powers aren't related to how a spider has powers, but they are how a human thinks of a spider.
Right.
It is the talismanic power of the spider infused into Spider-Man. That speed, that strength, that agility.
Spiders otherwise,
for very, very complex. Yeah.
Otherwise, he would sling webs out his butt.
Well, yes. Obviously, the web slinging from the butt is always an issue. Even web slinging from the wrists, when they actually had him create his own webs, was, you know, well, why are they from your butt, from your wrists, and not your butt? Although they make more sense from the hands because he is a human spider hybrid.
Right, and that is our most useful area of the body.
Exactly. It wouldn't be as useful with his hind legs to manipulate the webs the way that would be for
What I always found interesting was, the way he sticks to walls and whatnot is through the little tiny hairs on the surface of his skin, right? But when he's wearing the suit, do the hairs penetrate through the gloves?
Yes. So the hairs is something that came in more recently.
Really?
Well, before it was just magic.
Gotcha.
You have to remember, comic books didn't go into that much detail.
Right.
And when someone realized that there was this quantumly thin hair, and of course that's a misnomer, but it's a colloquial misnomer to say they're quantumly thin. But basically, they can interact with the atomic forces in a wall. And that's how certain insectoids can do that. Prior to that, it was thought they just had a uniquely sweaty foot that allowed them to interact with the surface. But in reality, what they're doing is essentially phasing through the wall. Because they're not damaging the wall per se in their movements, although possibly...
It's sort of like a little electron exchange or something.
Well, it's actually like it is fitting between the atoms.
Holy cow.
I mean, in a weird explanation of it, which is why it took us basically 500 years to find out that, oh my goodness, there's little quantum fissures on a bug's feet. Who knew?
But if it's attracting on like an electromagnetic issue, is it a charge issue? Is that the dynamic?
I mean, I am not an etymologist. I could not say specifically what it's supposed to do. I am literally working
fascinating
on the PBS documentary that everyone else is.
Wow.
Possibly YouTube video. But yeah, I mean, but the idea is that even in that concept, the Spider-Man is doing a facsimile of it. He is walking on the walls using a power that really, even if you upscaled it, wouldn't work, because it only works because the person, the being using it, the spider or the fly, is so light that anything that is above that, basically, once you get out of that area of quantum uncertainty, really, if you wanted to create a completely fun quantum mechanical explanation for superheroes, they basically exist in a state of quantum superposition where they are always not able to do something and are able to do something. And they can do it because basically it works for the story, and no other reason beyond that moment. But getting back to this story, how do we open up this episode?
People are running out of the aquarium.
Yeah, we open up on a dark and wet aquarium with people screaming, fish are getting hurt. Or fish are dying and people are getting hurt. Someone is getting hurt, and fish are definitely not doing well, because they didn't hurt nobody, and people are smashing their tanks. Not cool.
Right.
Not cool.
Hey, some of the fish might be welcoming the sweet embrace of death and respite from their imprisonment.
Well, I mean, it's possible, but then again, it's that classic question. Is 3 hots and a cot really that bad of a deal? And we saw that last episode with the gentleman who copped to the murder of our monster. Because at the end of the day, it was 3 hots and a cot, and he gets to draw, and it's it's not perfect, but you know what? It's not the worst life I could have, which we see in this episode when we look at our nurse Inez, who certainly has had the worst life you could have out of this storyline. It's 3 hots and a cot look pretty good. But it's only that higher intellect that makes you say, but I need freedom. For a lot of lower animals, we'll say, our mollusks and our octopi, just, the 3 hots and a cot is actually a pretty good deal.
Right, well, not just for them. I was just listening to a story about a man who went and lived with monks, and not even far, in upstate New York. and there's these Russian Orthodox monks, and he lived with them, and their whole purpose is to live purely. And I guess the idea of three hots and a cot, there's something to the simplicity if you're viewing it from a spiritual angle as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, not for nothing, if when it comes to three hots and a cot, it is one of these things where if it is something you choose, and it is something that is not encumbered upon cruelty to you in the administration of the three hots and a cot, of which, for these fish, it's not. I mean, obviously, anyone in that place loves those fish, as much as you can. It is a thing, you can be spiritually happy with three hots and a cot because, and of course, this is the conundrum of it, is that the three hots and a cot is coming. And the work you need to do is work that is spiritually rewarding. If you're a monk, your job is every day I get up and I pray.
Right.
And I do these prayers because these are the prayers that keep humanity, safe from Armageddon or something. And if you think about that from that mystical perspective, it's like this is an important job. It makes me happy, and I do it. And I don't really care that I have to wear the scratchy robe, and my meal is basically chickpea soup every night, every day. But the fact of the matter is, hey, you know what? Chickpea soup ain't that bad, and I get it, and I have a place to sleep, and when the rain falls, I am dry. None of this is a bad storyline, and every so often people show up and they're, oh my goodness, you live so simply and so perfectly. You're awesome. And it's like, you get a little bit of pride out of the deal, too. So, yeah, I mean, that whole thing is very complex, but of course, if we're going to tie it back to our show, what we see with Jessica and our spoiler, so big spoiler, even though I mentioned it earlier, and Tristan mentioned it last episode, the monster is Jessica's mom.
And she's also the flesh-faced monster?
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to get that in a later flashback, I think, where they basically show that as she's healing.
Oh.
That was her.
So Jessica, even back then, didn't know that the flesh-faced monster was her mom. Well, technically speaking, what it seems like to me is that the mom survived. They saved her, but they couldn't let Jessica know that the mom survived.
Well, what it was the mom survived, but she was way more messed up than Jess.
Right.
And I don't want to do too spoilery, because this is stuff that are going to reveal. But basically, yeah, the mom survived, and it seems to be... Oh, and see, now I'm getting into spoiler territory. I didn't want to do that to you, Mozz. But yeah, it is that, it wasn't that the mom was kept from Jess, it's that it took longer for the mom to get healed enough that she could meet with Jess. And
Right, but at least you could let the kid know, hey, your mom's alive. You know what I mean? That sort of active denial of letting a child know what the situation is seems purposeful and intentful. It makes me wonder what that intent was.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I don't want to get into spoilers here.
Right. But those are questions.
Yeah, that is the question you're supposed to... Because, basically, we go through this whole episode and we don't get the mom reveal until, literally the last scene.
Right.
So we get to the last scene with Jessica's mom, and she basically says, Mom, because apparently that frizzy wig was enough to confuse her.
Right.
Which is a little weird because they're in the bar, but I guess you can argue, hey, we don't know how drunk Jessica was when she went to that meeting.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, that is what we're looking at. But before that, because there's a lot that happens before that, there is an interesting thing with Patsy Walker.
Mm-hmm.
We get our first Patsy Walker Hellcat kicking some dude who maybe touched someone.
Yeah.
Although it's not really clear what he did. We don't know if he accidentally brushed her boob and she freaked out and he freaked out, or he grabbed her boob and had everything coming to him that resulted. It's supposed to be ambiguous.
Right. Because it's supposed to give you the same sense of not knowing that she had when she made that choice to put it more in stark context, that she did something without knowing what the situation was. That's how impulsive and crazy she is right now.
Well, exactly.
It was interesting to me. I mean, they played it kind of really over the top. It really seemed like, like a Patsy Walker afternoon special about drug abuse. That's how kind of it was played. It was kind of a little cheesy and a little cheeky, but I thought it was interesting. And it made me think, like, okay, she's all of a sudden become dependent on this inhaler. Has she not at all thought about what she's going to do when it runs out? Like, it doesn't seem to concern her at the least.
I don't think any addict ever thinks about the day when the bottle's empty.
No, isn't that all they think about?
No. Okay, obviously, Mozz, you're a well-controlled...
No. But putting myself in the mindset of an addict, you got to be like, oh shit, what am I going to do when this runs out? Yeah. When you're an addict, I guess you can go see the corner crack man and get your fix. But with her, where is she going to find this substance?
Yes,
it's not like it's a, I don't know. I mean, I feel like they should have played it up more. Maybe they didn't have time to give us the emotional struggle before she actually gives into it, and I don't know. It's a little weak for me.
I suppose there are a few levels on this, one of which is that, this is Patsy Walker, and she's not someone who's used to the idea that things aren't there. There was a wonderful little sketch I saw. I want to say it was on Key and Peele, where it's basically Jaden Smith's agent trying to pitch a script to Jaden Smith. And they realize that Jaden Smith doesn't understand what a choice is. Because, if you have two things, why would you take two things? It's like, no, you can only pick one of the things. Like, why would you only be able to pick one of the things? And it's basically, it's a wonderful, it's really fun. Look it up.
Great.
Yeah, look it up. Look up Key and Peele, Jaden Smith. I'm sure it'll show up. But it's a fun sketch, but it's basically about this idea that if you are of a certain privileged class, of which Jaden Smith, God bless him, has wound up in that privileged class. There are very few moments in your life where you have to go, what do I do next? And within this, and for Patsy's take on this, she doesn't know what this thing is she's using. She may not know the number of doses, and she may think that the doses are on the higher end. It's one of these things. My wife has asthma, and she has a little thing that she does nightly. It's a control medication to prevent attacks, but it has a counter on it, so you know how many you've had. We don't see a counter on this. We don't see that it. Right. Which is actually really poor planning on the designer's part. You always should have a counter if you can have a counter.
Unless it's, like, relatively disposable.
So, perhaps, but this is theoretically something that's meant to be used in combat. And you never want a guy saying, "Oh, is my puffer getting light?" Just before he goes into, the battle, But for whatever reason, yes, you're right. It's weird that she's not concerned about it. She's more concerned about the drug. But I think on a certain level, she has the drug, and she is excited about using the drug.
Right. And it's amazing to me that a private detective and another private detective who has, a history with drug abuse and addiction don't recognize the symptoms on her face.
Oh, no, they all do.
Yeah, right?
But they just think she's strung out on, heroin or something. She did some coke, she did some booze.
Oh, so you think Jessica knows she's done drugs and she's just like, whatever, I have to take care of her or whatever?
Well, yeah, I think our first scene with Jessica and Patsy in this episode is essentially that, Jessica basically saying, you look like, a 2-day-old falafel, and she's like, hey, my world just blew up, cut me some slack. And Jessica, as an active addict, has has to sit there and go, okay, yeah, I see. You know, I'm not gonna hate on you for this.
Yeah.
But, you know,
see, it's funny towards the end where they're in, where she puts Trish to bed and she finally leaves. I thought that Jess was onto her and that she was the one that took the inhaler.
Yeah.
When Trish couldn't find it, but ended up not being the case. But that's what I thought was happening at first.
Well, at this point, I don't think anyone knows that she's using the inhaler. So I think that that's what's the differentiation in this. I think that right now everyone's thinking that she's just strung out. You know, and to give you a personal example, you know, I have a friend who has a severe problem, and you know, it's very hard for me as a guy who has a smaller problem, but a problem still, to sit there and tell her, you know, hey, you know, you got to straighten up and pry right, Missy. When we both know that I'm going to go home, you know, and have a 40. You know, but I wait till I get home. But now in Patsy's case, and this I think is what I think is our overarching storyline here, is she's not doing the drugs to get high. I don't think it's really about getting high. It's about getting into Hellcat mode.
Right. No, but it is in a sense just like every addict in that she's simply seeking an escape from things she doesn't want to think about.
Well, on some level,
and she dresses it up with, you know, wanting to help people, but what it really is something that makes her not think about her real problems.
Yeah.
And it's funny that, like, you know, Malcolm says just that to her when he comes in. He goes, sometimes you have to blow yourself up to find out who you really are. And right now she's had enough of who she's supposed to be, you know?
Yes, and this is true. And she is moving towards who she is really meant to be.
Yeah, what did you think of the interaction between her and Malcolm and how that went down after she did her little drug, you know?
Well, it is, you know, two people in that moment. You know, already know that Malcolm has switched his addictions. And
what do you think he switched to? Oh, to women. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, to women. Yeah. Right. Then, you know, we mentioned that, you know, sticking your falafel into something that is not necessarily a proper transference from sticking a needle in your arm. Although, arguably, it actually is. Although the emotional blow-up can be just as bad. But in our modern era of swipe left, actually, it gets less emotionally entangled. So, who knows? Maybe he is on the workaround. Rather than drinking hobo beer on the train like Jessica does. For those of you who don't remember that, go check Back to the Defenders. But, yeah, so, yeah, they have their interaction because, of course, Malcolm finds the puffer. And, you know, but
is she going to wake up the next morning and, you know, regret what she did, you know?
Well, you know, I guess it all depends on how long the euphoria lasts. So,
right.
You know, for what it's worth, you know, and actually for an interesting take on that with the question of addiction, we have a very neat interaction between Malcolm and Nichelle.
His ex?
Yeah, his ex.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah, but it is such a fascinating take on that idea of, because, of course, it's prefaced within this concept that he made amends. He left her a voicemail to make amends, and she is not giving him the time of day. And
I don't think, well, yeah, but for reasons of self-preservation and prudence, you know?
Yes. But then he steals her pass. He steals her library card, essentially. Her student ID, her pass, whatever that was.
Right.
He steals it from her, which is such an addict thing to do. Which again goes to this idea of transference of addictions. That, you know, because here's the idea. There are so many things you can become dependent on. You know, you can be dependent on drugs, you can be dependent on alcohol, you can be dependent on sex, you can be dependent on the natural endorphins of outsmarting people.
Right. But I guess to some level, if you're going to do anything in life, you're going to have to do that, about something. Might as well make it about something that is productive. And, it's a weird road to walk where the end justify the means, or at least you have to ask yourself that question,
Well, what it comes down to actually is that he opted to take the shortcut. Because not for nothing, here's what I'm going to tell you. He went into those archives mostly to go through old yearbooks. I have been to college libraries. You can actually go into them and look at books. You can, you don't actually have to, and you actually, yearbook you can't even check out. That is a reference document.
Well, that he might have stolen.
Well, no, he just did a photocopy of it.
Oh.
But my point is that even stealing that item wasn't necessarily something he had to do. Essentially, he's a former student.
Right.
He could have gone into the registrar's office and said, yeah, I've gotten my life together. I'd really like to come back. I'd really like to really see if you guys can help me get back on my feet. I'm doing this. I've been feeling sober this long. Hey, can we take a tour of the library? I'd really like to be in that library. That was where I felt most comfortable. And then go about his business. He could have done the extra steps, but he wanted it quick, and it was quicker to just get the lift the pass off his friend. Now it's arguable, maybe. Well, no. I mean, however it worked out, but yeah, he basically went in and he saw an opportunity and he took it because there is a certain advantage to addiction. There is a certain idea that separating yourself from the emotional baggage of people is sometimes valuable.
Right.
Now, on a
if you have a strong view of yourself to sustain you in its stead,
Yes, that is true. You have to be confident and know where you're going.
Right.
Along those same lines, or along kind of separated lines, we have a very nice interaction between Inez and Hogarth throughout this episode. We have Inez basically manipulating Hogarth to get her these items for her to tell her about IGH, and then she basically tells Hogarth she knows nothing. And then when Hogarth is out for the day, complaining about Inez goes and starts basically ripping her off, stealing her jewelry, goes to her drugs and starts stealing her drugs, and then stops when she finds a certain medication within her pill cubby. How did you read this scene, Mozz?
I thought it was so beautiful. Mm-hmm. She's a really good actress to play that scene as she did. I mean, everything that I was supposed to feel, I feel like I carried. To me, it's like, especially when you're an addict, the one thing that always seems out of reach is redemption. To save other people's view of you and to save your own view of yourself. And it was so interesting. She's, given into being this trash person and she's robbing these things, but she notices something and she knows what that drug is. And all of a sudden, it's like you see a piece of yourself and you can it gives you a window to step into being that better person that you seem so far off in every other avenue that you can pursue in life. Or with your relationships. It seems so far off. But here you've got a moment, not only with other people's view of you, but to take ownership of how you view yourself. All of a sudden she was that caring person, and she had something to be proud of. It was a very interesting and very powerful moment for me, and she catches it, and all of a sudden she recognizes who she used to be and who she wants to be in this moment. It's really great.
Yes, and, for what it's worth, I mean, it is a powerful moment, and certainly, when you're watching it the first time, that is absolutely what you take from it. I mean, it's a well done scene, and then she comes in later and she shows the bag, and then she tells her about the other person from IGH, and that opens the door for what learn about in future episodes. Now, one great thing I love about this is we finally found out why it's called industrial garment and hosiery.
Right.
We still don't know what the industrial garment is, but we did find out the hosiery apparently, basically, Carl Malice, who is arguably trying to help people, saved this guy's son, who is a hosiery kingpin. Although he says that the hosiery industry has been hurt by spray tanning and open-toe shoes. It's been all but destroyed. Thank you, Donald Trump. But yeah, and they're you know, it's neat because he basically is saying, you know, this guy saved my son's life. I mean, now granted, what Jessica says is true too. You let this guy experiment on your son, but his take is you know what, dude, my son was gonna die,
right?
Like die horribly if someone didn't do this, and you know what, I gambled and I won,
right?
And that is the conundrum in all of this, because here's what I'll tell you: if Malice had, so let's say that Jessica's mom survived the accident, and Malice had come to her and said, hey, I can save your daughter, but it's this really risky experiment, but she's going to die regardless, but I could possibly save her with this new thing I'm doing. She'd have said yes. And if Jessica was the sole surviving member of her family, and Carl Malice approached her and said, I can save your mom with this experiment, she'd have said yes, because when it is someone you truly love, and they are going to die, you know, your moral compass gets very much askew. You know, now the problem is, of course, that they didn't have someone to give informed consent. And as a medical question, that is very important. People need to give informed consent. For what it's worth, that was the entire plot of Luke Cage, is they needed him to give informed consent. But then, of course, someone else goes and turns the dials to 11, which, sure, why not? That, because, of course, when an experiment goes wrong, it results in more powers, not less. That's a trope. But it works in the story. But here we have, what's actually interesting in contrast to Luke Cage is that, of course, it's a story about people that have been given powers correctly, although they weren't intended to give powers. It's like the mistakes didn't happen, but in order to actually save their lives, the only way to do so was to. Now, Jessica basically threatens our hosiery kingpin and his son. In kind of a monstrous way when you think about it. It's like, you know, if he had called her bluff there, what was he going to do? You know, because I think there's an argument you can make about, I'm going to tell him the truth, which is nonviolent and could be just as devastating. Just understand that your life is from people being stolen and, you know, experimented on without their consent. But in this case, you know, she doesn't. She basically just is saying, I'm powered, I can kill you with a thought, you know, tell me what I want to know and I'll go away.
Right.
Which is where, and this is also, of course, where we get our show title, FaceTime.
Right. But at the same time, I mean, like, you know, it's sort of just events unfolding as they were going to anyways. As soon as Ambrose called Dr. Carl to let him know that there was some girl sniffing around, he didn't think, oh, I might be able to avoid this confrontation. He went right to the monster and said, hey, Jessica's on her way. You know, so, and I think Ambrose deep down eventually knew that she was going to get to him anyways, and he alerted him, so it's off of him. I'm letting you know again she's coming, and I'm clear, you know? So it's an easy decision to make in a sense, too.
Yes, I suppose you're right. Now, of course, that is one of these interesting scenes, because, of course, at that moment, we don't know that that's Jessica's mom.
Right.
And when Malice says it's time, I think we're meant to think it's time to kill Jessica, but in fact, I think he's telling her, it's time you came clean with Jessica.
Right.
It's time you let Jessica know her mom is alive. And why she hasn't said that yet, we will learn in ensuing episodes. Because it ends on such a powerful cliffhanger. Okay.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on tonight's episode, Mozz? Anything you wanted to touch on?
No, I think we pretty much got into all of it. I can't wait to see how this plays out.
It's going to be great. I'm really excited about this series. I want to get as far as we can before Luke Cage starts this month. So that's that's our difficulty right now, Mozz. We are always playing against the clock, you and me. But that's okay. We'll figure it out. Mozz, if you would like to reach out to you, talk to you about Jessica, about the upcoming Luke Cage, about good old Punisher and what he's up to nowadays, how can they find you?
Oh, they can shoot me an email at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me that old-fashioned email way the way Mozz and Pods once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And, of course, follow me on the Twitters as I live tweet things. I'm going to try and live tweet this Thursday the premiere of Cloak and Dagger, but by the time you hear this, it will probably have been a few weeks ago. But anyway, follow me on Twitter at CharlieSR, that's CharlieEssesscr. Look for the 2 E's right there in the middle for quality. Thank you for joining us for the AKA Jonescast, and always remember, me and Mozz really want to be your friend.
We really do.
Good night.